Secret and I are going to split this one up. Secret's got how many years of experience training animals and working with marine mammal husbandry? And
about 17.
I've been in the marine mammal industry since 1971. I spent 20 years working for SeaWorld. I opened the dolphin habitat at the Mirage in Las Vegas, and I came here 2 years ago as a partner. I've trained everything from killer whales to penguins, and I love every animal I work with. And again, I'll let you know that the hardest animal to train are humans because they come with all the excess baggage. Animals, as a general rule, are very honest, and they have no hidden agenda. I wish I could say the same thing for people. So the bottom line here is we're going to help you understand as much as we can in the short little period of time we have left about dolphin behavior, so that you can be a better judge of what's safe for the animals and safe for your guests.
Okay, we're going to go over just a little bit of natural history about dolphins. You probably know a lot of this, and you may not know some of it. So we'll see. So groups of dolphins are called pods. The number of dolphins can vary in a pod. It can be anywhere from just a couple animals to over 100 animals. It just really depends. The pods are made up of long-term social groups. Dolphins are extremely social animals. The social groupings are also made of groups of age, gender, and reproductive condition. So what that means is the mother-calf pairs will be in a pod, and also on that pod you will have mature females with their recent offspring. You also have pods of subadult animals. That could be a mixed gender on that. And then you have adult males that usually are alone, or they travel in pairs or even trios of animals. And all the pods actually intermingle together for different reasons. Now, communication with the dolphins, you guys probably see a lot of this stuff out there. Some form of communication, whether it's jaw popping. There's a lot of physical contact with dolphins. There's a lot of peck rubbing, or can be aggressive where they actually push each other. You see breaching, bowing, other behaviors along that line. You also have posturing and then slapping different body parts on the surface of the water. Obviously, vocalizations are a form of communication, whistles and clicks, and then also the echolocation is presumably shared between animals. So you have multiple forms of communication with dolphins. Now, with the social behavior, the socialization, the process whereby any organism occurs and conducts itself in patterns of behavior accepted by its own society. As we're talking about the different bonds, you have the strong social bonds, you have maternal and then familial.
Very good.
I was working on that word. Also, you have smaller social groups, interactions together for short periods of time. So you have feeding, protection, and then also socialization, and then of course breeding is where your pods will actually mix. And at certain times during the day, you've probably seen it out there, you have a couple pods, and then towards the end of the day you have 75 dolphins around you for short periods of time that could be mingling for feeding or other things, especially breeding. There is social hierarchy with the animals, and matriarchal basically is led by the females.
The aggression behaviors that you see are very much like the normal natural behaviors you see. When you're seeing the social hierarchy, you're seeing dominance. The moms, the big females, are taking control, and they're going to run their calves, they're going to run their daughters' calves, and they're going to run every male. And in this particular climate, this social dominance, which varies geographically from different oceans, New Zealand and Australia have totally different social things going on with some of their animals. Our animals are basically run by the matriarchs. There are bachelor pods that go around and breed, and you have super pods that Secret touched on where they mix together, they breed back and forth all over the place, and then they separate again for food reasons, because your food source can't support on a regular basis a huge megapod of dolphins that have been breeding. So they go back to their normal natural areas. The breeding itself usually creates not only male but female dominance. The males become far more aggressive in a breeding opportunity, and in some areas have been known to, in groups in bachelor pods, kidnap females, breed them for 2 or 3 months. Once they're bred and they've conceived, then they get rid of them and turn them loose, and the females go back to their original matriarchal pod. You've got protection. The moms will become very, very protective, and they use their dominance and they use their aggression to protect their calves. nothing will probably be more aggressive in a situation out there in the wild than a mom protecting her calf. And you don't want to get in the middle of that. Frustration can occur, and it's natural for almost every organism. When frustration occurs, aggression occurs. Fear. You got basically two options here when you're afraid of something. You either run away from it or you face it. And then that's a flight or fight type instinct. Dolphins have a tendency to use both depending on the situation. If it's a mom, she's going to overcome her fear and she's going to fight you for her calf or to protect her calf. If it's a young neonate or a young animal, they're going to probably run away if they feel afraid of whatever's going on in their environment. Threatened by other species, not including man. Yeah, you've got a bunch of dolphins out there all mixing and matching, but I'll tell you one right now. Your bottlenose dolphin, which is the most cosmopolitan of all cetaceans, they're almost everywhere. They have a tendency to interbreed with other species and have been known to do it successfully. So because of their aggressive nature, they will breed with other animals. They will do things that other dolphins won't do. You'll see spinners, you'll see spotteds, you'll see all these animals are all pretty much laid back and more pelagic. They're more relaxed. Bottlenose dolphins are far more aggressive in nature to every other animal that they come in contact with, especially the food. They will play with food very similar to what killer whales do. They'll grab something, kill it, and use it to teach their young how to grab and kill something else. They're the closest thing in my experience to a killer whale of any other cetacean you'll run into. Beluga whales I've trained, great big white marshmallows, they're fun. You've got false killer whales out here that are far more laid back and relaxed than a bottlenose dolphin is, and a lot less aggressive. Your pilot whales are probably the next closest thing, cosmopolitan-wise, to being aggressive. So be careful out there when you see them, especially when you see animals mixing. If you see different species mixing together, you should pay very special attention to make sure that the bottlenose aren't being too aggressive to the other species. Environmental changes, obviously, environmental changes can cause health problems, which causes aggression. If you don't feel good, you're probably not going to be temperately want to deal with other animals or other organisms. Disruption of natural behavior, again, you disrupt a social group, whether it's a group of moms and calves or whatever, or a breeding situation. You're going to get some aggression, so watch out for that. Deprivation. Whenever an animal is food deprived or deprived of oxygen, just like we would be, it's part of your primary reinforcements. You know, when you take away food, air, water, and reproductive capability, those are our four basic primary reinforcers. I don't think I left any out. The bottom line there is when you take those away and you deprive an organism of that, that can cause frustration. If you get in the middle of a breeding group of animals and you take away that breeding opportunity because of what you've done, you can upset and have aggression from a big male. Oh, you guys are laughing now. Baiting is part of the problem with deprivation and habituation. Let's go to the next slide. Behavioral conditioning, you've got two different types that I want to talk about. Habituation, which happens with the lessening or disappearance of a response with repeated presentation of a stimulus. Very easy. You know, you take a wild animal and you spend more time around it, the animal becomes comfortable with you. That's habituation. An example, stimulus response to people, animals, normal response is to run away if they're a wild animal. You know, anybody who hunts deer knows that deer see you or smell you or hear you and they're gone. So that's basically a response to being afraid, and it's the flight instinct that keeps them alive. Natural curiosity. Now, this is where dolphins can get themselves in trouble. They've been known to do things that you would say, I thought they were smart. I could have swore the teacher said dolphins were intelligent. Yet they'll stick their nose into something that doesn't belong there, and then they'll try, but they might learn from it if it doesn't kill them. So there is a natural curiosity that these animals have that will overcome their natural instinct to stay away from something they don't know. And that can get them in trouble. The habituation is probably the most damaging when it comes to boats and props. And that kind of damage that can be done when they're run into because they get used to it, all of a sudden one turns and they didn't expect it, they can't react fast enough, and now they're hurt. The affiliation to connect or associate oneself is habituation. You become habituated by affiliating yourself with this particular situation. Now let's go to food conditioning and the primary reinforcers I talked about. You've got primary reinforcement, a reinforcing event that does not depend on learning. In other words, those four basics: food, air, water, reproductive capability. Those are drives that people have, that animals have, that we share. Now let's go to secondary reinforcers. Those are reinforcements that have an acquired value. The acquired reinforcing value through learning by being paired with events that are already reinforcing. In other words, I could teach an animal to want to be petted by feeding him a primary reinforcer. It happens all the time. You can also teach them that by giving them a behavior to do that they do, and you reinforce them and you rub them and you pet them. Now you're petting and you're touching is a secondary reinforcer. And many people will do all kinds of things for a back scratch or a massage. Animals are the same way. They're very social animals, and these dolphins are very social. And when they get used to people, they can get used to being touched, and that becomes a reinforcement. We use it as a reinforcement with our animals all the time. A lot of times they're not even hungry. We feed them to the point of satiation every single day. So we've got to rely more on those secondary reinforcers, and we only know about the secondary reinforcers by developing a relationship. You guys don't have that opportunity. You would be against the law if you tried to develop a relationship with a wild animal, because the time spent and the contact spent to do that would put you in jail. Accidental reinforcement, reinforcement of an unintended behavior causing an increase in an undesired response. Accidental reinforcement happens all the time. A dog walks by and his tail is wagging and he knocks the cereal bowl off the table. Holy crap, that's food. Now the dog turns around and eats the cereal and goes, oh man, he associates that accidental, and now he's been reinforced. Next time he sees a cereal bowl, he'll look at it and go boom and knock it off with his nose. It falls on the floor, accidental reinforcement, but it's a primary reinforcer that's very strong, and he learns very quickly. Dogs, dolphins, humans, horses, all kinds of animals learn by observing as well. Example, dolphins are predators, not scavengers, inadvertently trained to eat dead fish and or foreign objects. In other words, people, buckets, boats equal food. When that, and I'm not accusing here, when that combination occurs, now you got problems. And that's where the reinforcement values come in. Oh yeah, let's go to the, this again is New Zealand. It's Moko, much bigger Moko, a much more habituated Moko. Now this is a lifeguard in that area, and he's taking this newspaper reporter out to show her just how aggressive Moko has become. And as long as the lifeguard's in the water, he's fine. He comes over, he relaxes, he's habituated to him, he knows him, they understand each other. Now he's going to throw the girl in the water. Now he wants her. He's going to push her or try to push her away from the boat. This problem was created inadvertently. That's a big animal, and that's an Aduncus. You got 3 different subspecies of bottlenose. The Aduncus is an Indian Ocean. And still he's a pretty good sized boy. Here we just set up and this again is a non-judgmental table. Basically, we're looking at human interactions when they're controlled and conditioned. We consider them, society-wise, to be professional and legal. They're regulated by USDA and APHIS, as well as the Marine Mammal Protection Act and the Endangered Species Act. Now let's go to human interactions that are uncontrolled, yet still conditioned, in my opinion, depending on how the operators and the people that are getting in the water with the animals react and interact with the animals. I still think they're conditioned. However, is it professional? Hopefully this is going to help you guys be professional. Is it legal? That's where the long arm of the law comes in, and the guys are going to have to enforce what they consider safe for you and safe for the dolphins, as well as what Marine Mammal Protection Act says. So here we go. Avoidance. Performance of a behavior which is postponed or averts the presentation or of an aversive or event or stimulus. Approach conflict, a situation in which an organism wants something but is afraid of obtaining it. So in other words, when you've got a dolphin coming up to your boat and they're being, there's an approach conflict here. They're afraid, but yet they want something that somebody's going to feed them or give them. And you see that in some of your stuff. We're going to show you a friskier dolphin here in a minute. An accidental reinforcement, we already talked about, and frustration. Now here's where you really have a problem. If an animal is used to being fed from a boat and it hangs around and deals with people and everything's cool, but then you stop feeding it, now you've changed all of the parameters of the relationship. That immediate change causes frustration. over time, the frustration goes away because the animal becomes inured with the fact that it's not going to be fed, and it's either going to go away itself or it's going to hang around because it's curious. Nothing wrong with that, as long as you don't feed it. Let's go ahead with frisky dolphin. And I can't guarantee that this is not an interaction that's been trained and developed. In some areas of the Caribbean, they do this where they take people out and snorkel with animals and then they bring the animals back. I don't know if you've ever heard of that or not. But they sit on the bottom, and some of these animals will hang around and they'll feed them. And these are animals that, again, are trained. Then they go back to the boat slips with the boat. This particular animal is going to take advantage of the situation. So whether he's wild or whether he's captive, or whether he was wild and then captive, I can't judge. Well, this can really escalate to the point that the person gets hurt. Now, this person is really lucky because he's not opening his mouth. He's not grabbing her and holding onto her. He's just constantly trying to get the upper hand, so to speak. He cradles his girlfriend, and he still won't quit. As a matter of fact, he's trying to figure out a way to get to him now. Precursors to aggression, real quick. You've got tail slapping, you've got breaching, you've got speed swimming. These are all natural behaviors. They can also be precursors to aggression. When an animal is upset, they'll slap pecks, they'll slap tails, they'll slap their dorsal on the side, showing their frustration or their inability to change the situation. They'll do the same thing by breaching. I've watched dolphins that'll breach on other dolphins in the wild and in captivity just to move them, get them out of the way. And you've got speed swimming where usually an animal's trying to get away from another animal. And just because you see this doesn't mean that they're liking it. A lot of times that's because a more aggressive animal is chasing them out of the way, so be careful about that. You've got jaw popping, which we all know, we've all seen, we've all heard. Most of the time, it's aggressive. When you see an animal jaw popping at a boat or a person or another animal, they're telling them they're fed up with them, and the next thing is we're going to get physical. Physical contact can move into aggression, so you got to be very careful about any kind of physical contact you have, because as soon as you cause the frustration, you're going to have aggression. Breaching, we talked about. Posturing, an animal sitting, and you watch an animal and he starts moving around, he starts giving you the eyeball. Right there, that's a sign that animal's taking a good possibility of trying to figure out what he wants to do to change the situation. And again, that can go right to aggression. Slapping surface of water, we talked about. Vocalizations, as a general rule, unless you hear chuffing, vocalizations are not necessarily a sign of aggression or a precursor to aggression. Unless you see a mom looking right at her calf and she's going, rah, 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 rah. She's ticked off and she's telling the calf what to do. And I mean, she's giving her, and what for. And if the calf doesn't do it right away, she's going to go ahead and be aggressive to the calf. Other than that, probably not going to interact with you unless you guys are in the middle. If you're in between her and her calf, then you got a problem. Echolocation, presumably shared, we talked about. It has just been discovered that they do believe that in many dolphins, one will be echolocating, but the other animals are using that echolocation and triangulating off of what's going on. So don't ever try to disrupt, especially in a feeding situation, any kind of echolocation that's going on by getting in the middle of it, because that can cause them to not be successful in their food hunt. These are the recommended videos which will be on the CD. We want to play one more video for you and then we'll end it.
Yeah, and this is going to show the posturing as people are trying to feed and interact with the animal.
Yeah. This one's called Don't Pet the Dolphin. And it is actually a video of a recreational boater and his girlfriend, and she's the smarter of the two. See all the scarring around his rostrum? And see how flat his teeth are? That's an older animal. He's been scrounging in the bottom looking for bottom fish. Now he just got fed. Okay, so he's going to continue to follow the boat. Like, all of those are indications of the age of that animal and his behavior patterns. Okay, you going to feed me again? You going to feed me again? Okay, he doesn't feed, he leaves. But there's no place else, and there's nobody else feeding, so he comes back. They're bagging on the boat, trying to call him back. And obviously he's been trained to pay attention to that, because he does. They pretend like to feed him. Okay, let me touch it. Let's show the seal, because this one, you guys won't have to worry about this one, but this is pretty funny. This is taken in Mexico with a baby seal. It's actually not a seal, it's a sea lion. And he's a young sea lion. And he comes in contact on the beach with a couple of U.S. citizens. He's also been tagged. He's a tagged animal. So that means at some point in time he was collected and or beached and then re-released. Fortunately, you don't have to worry about them here. See how he's trying to get her to react? What do you got? What do you got? What do you got? But he's not being mouthy. And he's so cute that you just want to pet him. And he's being such a good boy too. I petted him. That was good. He didn't bite me. Well, now I'm going to pet him some more on the non-biting end, and he's letting her, and that's cool. So let's go ahead and think about giving him a reinforcement for all of that. Thanks. There we go. The Mexican local has just cut up some fish, and he's going to feed him. Bad move. Now watch what happens. He was really good until somebody fed him. Now he's going to become more aggressive. He's displacing people, trying to get him to feed. She was lucky. So that's the kind of stuff that happens when you do feed. All right, so you got the video page and everything, and basically I'm just trying to give you a short understanding in a very short period of time about stuff that it's taken me 40 years to learn.